Hey legends, and welcome back to the channel where we appear to be retracing our roots. With the indefinite postponement of the Nürburgring 24 hours, it was amazing to see the sim racing community all band together and recreate the event in iRacing. With the somewhat mixed sentiment that's being levied against iRacing of late, I thought I would take the opportunity to recreate the event in a simulator that to me represents a high degree of driving precision and overall enjoyment for GT racing, namely rFactor 2. Back in the very early days of this channel, when I was making content for a paltry 50 subscribers and a few dozen people per video, I created a video like this where we did the 24 hours of Nürburgring in 24 minutes. It wasn't particularly enthralling, there was no commentary, and I just kind of threw it up haphazardly. But this time, we're gonna do it right. What we've done here is set up a mixed grid of various GT cars with time compression set to 60 times, so we're actually gonna see a full day-night cycle from 2 PM on Saturday down to 2 PM on Sunday as the race finishes. I hope you guys enjoy it. Before we get to the race, make sure to smash subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest in sim racing news and entertainments. And without further ado, let's get into the race. Alright, and across the line for the inaugural 2020 edition of the Nürburgring, 24 hours done in 24 minutes. Brought to you by Heusinkveld Industries. But the real question is, how long until this AI just utterly punts us off the track? Oh my lord. Yep, that's the experience I know and love. Flags are off, clearly. Damage is off, clearly, otherwise this race would not last very long at all. In fact, it'd already be over. Now, when we get a chance to calm down, and the AI chills out a little bit, okay, thank you guys. Appreciate the extra positions. I believe we're in P3 now. I mean, it just doesn't get much better than that, does it? Allow me to just negotiate this hairpin with cold tires, which ironically make this car much more drivable for me. One of the interesting things about the Porsche is that as the fuel empties out, it becomes a little more twitchy. And as the tires warm up, it becomes a little more oversteery, which is, I don't know if it's a character I enjoy in a car like this. So you might be asking, or you may not be asking, in fact I'm almost sure you're not asking, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Why the Porsche? Why the 911 GT3? Well, the Nürburgring Nordschleife represents about 90% of my overall time investment in racing simulators. Ever since I first learned it in Project Cars 2 and forced myself to set as many production car leaderboard records as I possibly could, I've kind of fallen in love with it. Being a guy that came from a rally background, this is the closest thing you can get to a tarmac rally in, I suppose, the modern GT race calendar. With the exception of, shorter tracks, I guess Brands Hatch is very bumpy. It's got its own thing going on, and you've got Sebring as well, which is sort of the king of micro bumps. But the Nürburgring is the only one that winds around basically gigantic hills in and around a West German forest. We're P1, by the way, guys. I hope this doesn't make it too boring for you, but you can see I did this legitimately. I didn't set that AI up for failure, I promise. They're set to 100. I mean, their strength is reasonably high. It's not world class, but a GT3 AI at 100, they'll race you. Anyway, maybe now we can just chill out, enjoy P1, and have a conversation about this track. It's wonderful. It reminds me of being there. It really does. Alright, I just wanted to make sure I tied that together well. So, what's to say? I mean, I'm almost in disbelief that not only can we do this, when else in human history have we been able to drive cars this fast down a track like this, much less be able to do so virtually from across the world. I mean, I'm in Melbourne, Australia as I do this right now, and last year I got to do it in real life, which was amazing. But the Sims are so close to recreating this with the laser scan detail that when I was actually at the Nürburgring, it felt like a homecoming of sorts. felt like I had taken these corners hundreds of times before. Which I suppose in some obtuse way I had. Let's see if we can get a bit of a gap going to the guys behind us. The Porsche is quite strong in this section of the track. But I have a feeling the AI is going to kick in that catch-up setting and give us a bit of a hard time on the straight. Oh, they're there. They're not letting off. If we can keep them out of draft distance, we should be okay. But I don't have my breath held for that. So yeah, the way that this car handles this track, it's almost like it's built for it. It's almost like some high-tech ballet. You really feel it through section 2. You just lift off the throttle and the car basically turns itself around. It's truly remarkable. And that's one of the reasons that I picked it here over the McLaren 720S, which I'm far more familiar with, I'm far more consistent with. I would have a much easier time putting this video together with. But I thought this would be a little more exciting. And a good chance for, you know, some minor personal growth. Woo. Such as learning not to spin in that situation. And losing the entire gap to this McLaren behind me. Alright, got two McLarens directly behind me. What a time. So I mean, I think it's fair to say that the McLaren overall is probably still going to be a faster car around this track in this game. We'll do our best to maintain our lead for as long as we can. Especially as it gets dark and I lose my ability to see the track correctly. Something strange with the lighting engine here in rFactor, but until it gets completely dark, the headlights seem to just not work. I'm having a lot of trouble actually seeing the circuit in front of me. One thing I really don't look forward to is the car becoming way more pivoty. Once the fuel runs out and the rear end gets higher, center of gravity increases, and it begins to bring around the rear a lot more. It's one thing I'm still learning how to tune out of the car. I think you have to go into it with like more fuel in the Porsche than you might otherwise want, simply just to keep the rear end down. It's almost the only car on the planet I avoid excessive rake on. But watching the circuit at dusk like this reminds me of one of my favorite pastimes when the actual N24 is on. I like to load up one of the random onboard camera feeds that they show and just have it on in the background as I go about my day. So it's almost like the N24 is with me as I go about work or answering emails or whatever. And I'll touch base every so often and I'll see, you know, there's been a couple of driver swaps, maybe a few position swaps. This guy's gonna spin me out, isn't he? I'm gonna give him the position because the rFactor AI is just homicidal. I was hoping I'd be able to get the draft back off him on the straight, but it looks like not. Let's see if we can get him on the GP circuit though. Him and his massive wing. Slightly overshot that one, it's fine. Oof, not the neatest thing I've ever done. So the reason I suck so much at that corner is that most of my times have been invested in the Nordschleife or the GP circuit, not so much the 24-hour layout, of which that corner is the only part of. It's the only unique part to this layout, but for some reason I just never really learnt it. Oh yeah, buddy. That is the way. It's funny how that on the GP circuit, the thing I've invested by far the least amount of time on of the entire Nürburgring, I somehow seem to catch the AI more readily. I think I should thank ACC for that. As soon as ACC came into early access, boy did I drive the heck out of this track in that Lamborghini Huracan. I wasn't too fond of it at first, but I've got to say, when I actually drove the GP circuit in rFactor, I enjoyed it a lot more than driving it in ACC. Much to your surprise, I'm sure. But rFactor is a lot more, or at least it was back then, a lot more forgiving to overdriving. There's been a lot of people talking about iRacing lately and how unforgiving it is to slides and how it's not like real life. Well, that's how ACC started. You'd basically go into these uncontrollable lumbering slides on a dime, and there was no way of pulling the car out of it. The forgiveness window in rFactor 2 has always been a fair bit higher. Now, I'm not saying that it's necessarily high to an unrealistic degree. It may be. I can't say for sure, I'm not a GT3 driver. But it gives you just enough to play with to be enjoyable, and that kind of ties into the video that Niels Heusinkveld did earlier today that I really enjoyed, where he spoke about not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and if you don't enjoy a handling model like iRacing, well, you know, don't lump rFactor, AMS at all to the same criteria. For him, the joy in sim racing is all about being at the limit of adhesion, and it's very much the same for me. Which is probably why whenever he designs a car in a game or is involved in a sim, I immediately enjoy it. We have the same idea of what constitutes fun. Driving through the Nürburgring Nordschleife in pitch black, I mean, what an experience. I don't know how that wasn't track limits, but I'll take it. Ah, no. The car's developing some of that character I so love. On lap 2, I'm going to take it easy. I'm probably burning out the soft compound tires, and yes, I did go into this race with soft compound tires. Never said I was the smartest guy on the planet. You guys that have played rFactor for a while, what do you think? Do you feel like the AI gives the car following you some kind of an interesting catch-up boost when you're in pole? Because I've often noticed when I'm playing this game, there's one car that's right up me, and the rest are way in the back somewhere. Like they haven't received the same boost. I don't know, it's just an observation. I'm kind of thankful to not have the AI in front of me potentially massacring this run. It gives me a chance to talk to you guys in a leisurely fashion, at least as leisurely as is allowed by doing this insane race. They're always so closer than they appear. So much closer than they appear. Losing my ability to speak. One of the inevitable consequences of the Nürburgring. Brain cell loss. Motorsport enthusiasm. If you guys could just see the amount of micro corrections I'm making to keep this car on the road at these speeds, it's just... This laser scan of this track and this simulator, its physics engine, when combined together, they're truly a marvel of modern tech. I just, you know, break it down however you wish. Whether you, oh wow, that's, yeah, great work there. I deserve to lose that position. So break it down however you wish. If you like iRacing, GT Sport, rFactor, ACC, AMS, whatever really. But you can't deny that the level of engineering in these sims is just... I mean, we're privileged to live in these times where these are the options that we have available to us. So whether we become elitists about rFactor, you know, and its glorious time model, or ACC and its graphics, or whatever it is that you love about it, at the end of the day, it's really all valid. It's all about the player having a great experience. And for me, what connects the most is, you know, rFactor with this kind of content. I mean, what an experience this is. To get this close to one of my favorite motorsport events in the world and be able to partake in it to some degree. On this level, like to think that, and I know this isn't impressive to some of you aliens watching this right now, but for me to be able to speak to you and drive this circuit at this level in a simulator that's this realistic is just, it was nigh unthinkable for me a few years ago. But above all, oh man, the car's just everywhere. I can't get it to stick to the road. But above all, the levels of involvement and just sheer fun. Oh god, like what are you... I'm trying not to let this guy go. Oh, that's gonna pan out badly. We need to be within draft range. We're gonna push. We're gonna push. We're gonna push. Oh, I think we're just out. I think we're just outside. We'll see. We'll see. Come on. And as the sun comes up over this run, it just reminds me of all those onboards I used to watch. I remember as the race finished on that last Sunday, I was watching, I think from the perspective of one of the Audi R8s, which ended up winning the race, I think. And it was just magical. It's just lap after lap watching the sun gradually come up over the forest. And to those who've never been there, Nürburgring is a beautiful place. Adenau as well, where we stayed. Can't help but feel that this McLaren has a little bit more push than me on the straights. I think maybe I've dialed up the rear aero a bit too much in order to combat the Porsche's more homicidal characteristics. Come on, baby. We can do this. We can do this. One of my not favorite cars against my favorite cars, except I'm not the one driving my favorite cars, so this is quite the experience. It's usually the Porsches I'm competing against. Oh yeah. You just can't get me on the GP circuit, can you? I don't know what it is about them, they're slightly more forgiving on the GP circuit than the Nordschleife. They've really been dialed in for the Nordschleife. Alright, will I spin? Not today. So that low fuel indicator you're seeing is a sign that the car is going to attempt to murder you. It's Porsche's warning symbol for maximum lift-off oversteer. So it'll be interesting to see the way this pans out over our last lap. And I definitely appreciate the AI for the close fought pole position, which I may yet lose. Especially if I continue driving like this. Jeez, what a mess. Alright, on to T1 and back home. You know, every time I get onto the Nordschleife, it's just the thousands of laps kick in. It just feels like, it almost feels as natural as breathing at this point. So you know when they talk about you do something for 1,000 hours and it's like, become a quote-unquote pro at it. I feel like I've done the equivalent of that, except without becoming a pro at it, because clearly I'm not making money out of doing this. But boy, am I having a lot of fun doing it. I think that's what this is really all about. You know, I'd suggest to you guys that own rFactor or heck AC, any game that's got the 24-hour layout, and just do this for yourselves. It's unbelievably engaging and fun. And also challenging, especially if you're a newer sim racer. Like just trying to keep the car on the track for 24 minutes. It's quite a thing. It gives you a lot of respect for the guys that do this in real life. And as much as it is far easier for me to do this in a car more like the McLaren than the Porsche, I appreciated the challenge of doing this. I appreciated the challenge of the new driving character, as well as talking to you guys while attempting to maintain pole position. And if any of you guys are still watching and not bored out of your minds, tell me if you want to see a walkthrough series on the Nordschleife. Obviously, I'm not going to instruct you anywhere near as good as one of the insanos that does this professionally in real life, like Sabine Schmitz, Kevin Estra, Lawrence Vanthors, or the countless other people who do this stuff amazingly. I can probably touch base with you on more of a ground sim racer level and the sort of approaches that helped me learn the track. Especially to be able to consistently string together laps, you know, without having all those physics cues you would have in real life, where, you know, the slip is only coming through the force feedback. I do really appreciate the Porsche's unique handling character. And again, especially there with the bump on the outside, most cars will just spin out there, but not the Porsche. Just pin the throttle and it's like an auto TC. On account of the fact that it's rear-engined and just understeers the moment you put the throttle down. It's taken an interesting tuning approach for this car. I've made the dampers a lot stiffer than I normally would, especially the slow dampers, to avoid the car from pitching and diving around as much as it normally would. And in fact, even the suspension itself is 1 point stiffer than I thought it would be for the Nordschleife, just to stop the car from, you know, doing that Porsche thing. The last thing you need on this track is an uncontrollable slide. And it's, as you can, oh my god, as you can see by my corrections, the car is continually trying to do that. So a lot of you guys noticed a lot of flex in my sim rig on the last video, and trust me, I know. I am mounting it to a stand that they expressly say not to mount it to. Really? Twice? I fell out of the carousel twice? So that's definitely one of my weak points in the Porsche right now. I'm struggling to get the entry speed right. I find it often bouncing straight out. Oh man, it's that, you know, I was talking about that character it has when it loses fuel. We're all the way there now. We're deep in that territory. And on the most dangerous portion of the track too, so it's going to be a strong finish, I think. Dear Lord, if we can maintain this lead, I'll be so happy. Oh, the car just wants to massacre me right now. The great thing is, when I put the throttle down, it still regains its grip. Try and make up as much of a gap as I can, so the guy doesn't get us on the straight. That's the most dangerous thing right now. So that McLaren will munch us if it gets us there. I really do love McLarens. That was what we rode in when I was there. This time it was set to be a a GT2 RS, which would have been, I suppose, the closest road-faring equivalent to this car. She wants to dance. She really wants to dance around. Got to be careful. And slight lift and then back on the throttle. I've never been so happy towing the Formula V2 room in my life, other than the fact that I'm sweating all over the Alcantara hand grips. Alcantara, as it were. Still waiting on my karting gloves to arrive. I have a feeling the grips will be well worn by then, given the rate at which I'm simming. It's one of the great things about the lockdown. We can really explore our passions. And I mean, what a passion this is. What an amazing time to be alive, that it lets you, technology lets you live out something like this, both in reality and virtually. I mean, you have it every which way you want. Almost forgot to apply the throttle there. I thought I was going back on the Nordschleife. And there we are, guys. Pole position. Pole position at the 2020 N24. Brought to you by Meister Industries. I'm almost speechless. I'm sweating all over. I don't think you guys know the amount of attempts it took to get this recorded without the AI mercilessly punting me off the track, but I'm glad you joined me for this, and I really hope you enjoyed it at least half as much as I did making it. I love doing this at least once a year and hope to make it a bit of a thing, especially around the time of the Nürburgring 24. And if you guys own rFactor, AC, or any similar sim that can recreate this, I would strongly recommend doing it for yourselves. It's such an experience, and if you can, do it for a couple of hours, get your friends involved, do some driver swaps, just get in there and make it happen. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me yet again. Make sure to smash subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest sim racing news and rFactor and AMS worship. If you didn't like it, that's completely fine. Just smash the dislike twice, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.